Greetings to all learners. Myself Sharda Devre, Associate Professor, Government College of Pharmacy, Amravati, welcomes you to Lecture 17, AYUSH CDSCO and FSSAI Guidelines under the Week 4 Quality Control Standards and Regulations of Traditional Plant Drugs. First, we will learn the AYUSH Guidelines and historical developments in regulations of the Indian traditional medicines. This Sanskrit shlok, that is a Vibhronsho Vishavadyasya Samyak Yogo Yathamrutam Kaleshva Vashya Peyam Cha Tasmadyanat Prayojayet, means the drug which applied wrongly act as a poison while rightly administered as a nectar. A right drug too should be used cautiously in prescribed times. Means any medicinal plant or traditional medicine can also be poison if it is dose is not maintained properly, or if it is not used for the proper duration of a time. So dose is important, various regulations are important, and from that point of view the Indian government is continuously updating this traditional knowledge with the various updations or various substitutions and deletions and the insertions of the new guidelines, new rules and new acts. In 1940, the Drugs and Cosmetics Act 1940 and the Drugs and Cosmetics rules were introduced in India. And in 1959, the Government of India recognized the traditional Indian systems of medicine. In short form, it is called as ISM, and updated the Drug and Cosmetics Act accordingly to introduce these traditional medicine systems. In 1962, the various committees for these Indian systems of medicine formed, and in 1969 the separate chapter related to the Ayurveda, Siddha, Unani inserted into the DNC Act, that is a Drugs and Cosmetics Act. In 1970 the Central Council of Indian Medicine is constituted, which was completely devoted to the various aspects of these medicine systems, its education institutes, or its progress in the various parts of the India, and then further the regulation of the compounds or products that are getting marketed. In 1970, the Pharmacopoeial Laboratory of Indian Medicine was formed to ensure the standardization and testings of these ASU drugs, because many times as a part of a quality control check by the national or international authorities, there is a must of the government laboratories which can give the uh, authenticate results about the quality, safety and efficacy of these medicines. And from that point of view, in 1970 this lab established, and which was actually the turning point for the um, Indian traditional medicine system utilization, because from that day in 1983, 1987, 1984, and in 2002 various drugs and cosmetics act chapters were modified, rules were modified, some are substituted, some are introduced. In 1995 the homeopathy system also uh, means added, and the Department of Indian Medicine and Homeopathy together, means name was changed and it was given like that. Actually, we have seen that the Ayurveda, Siddha and Unani developed in India, but the homeopathy is developed in the other parts of the world, especially it is in the Arabian or Persian regions. But it was well adapted in India, and now also it is accepted, adapted and practiced more as compared to the other countries. Then in 2001, due to the case of the turmeric and basmati intellectual property rights, the traditional knowledge digital library, that it was the collaborative project between the CSIR and the Ministry of Science and Technology and Department of AYUSH, as well as the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, so that whatever the Indian medicine system knowledge that should be get documented, because in the international defense for the patents or copyrights or for the secrets or other intellectual property rights, it becomes necessary to show the documents or evidences, which we have just seen in a previous lecture, that how documents or literature, either from the ancient text or the modern research papers, review papers, that helps to establish our knowledge our traditional or ancestor knowledge in a proper way as a proof for that owning or its total rights about the knowledge. Then in 2002, National Policy on Indian Systems of Medicine and Homeopathy established, and in 2003, a separate department, means actually there was a separate department, but it was renamed as AYUSH, means it was a Department of Indian System and Homeopathy. Then it was renamed as a Department of Ayurveda, Yoga, Naturopathy, Unani, Siddha, and Homeopathy, that is a AYUSH department. Then in 2006 and 8, the various guidelines for evaluation and analysis of drugs under the Indian System of Medicine through the Drugs and Cosmetic Acts established. In 2008, it becomes must to maintain the record of the raw material by the manufacturing units of herbal drugs was uh, circulated. Then in 2009, the certification scheme for the AYUSH drug products in collaboration with the Quality Council of India was introduced. This has also again given the weightage to the quality control, that any raw material, its record is maintained by the manufacturing unit, and further its quality certificate should be obtained from the uh, specially designed or specially dedicated AYUSH departments. Then in 2009, the National Medicinal Plant Board developed and introduced the guidelines and standard for good field collection practices for the Indian medicinal plants, because most of the plant materials are either collected from the wild sources or cultivated. So for cultivation, certain practices are maintained, but for collection there is also need of the practices or standards that need to be followed, and that we have seen in the previous lecture. In 2012, SOVA Rigpa system, which is a Tibetan system, and that is got incorporated into the system of the Indian, like that is for example Ayurveda, Siddha, Unani, and they are considered as a Central Council of Indian Medicine's part. Then in 2013, good clinical practices guidelines for clinical trials to have a well-programmed clinical study of the Siddha and Unani medicines, that was established. Because in a previous lecture, I told you that if there is no evidence of quality, safety, and efficacy, then data need to be generated, and guidelines are necessary, that how the clinical studies should be done, or how it should be get documented, what are the different ethical and social aspects that need to be considered. Everything is written in that. In 2014, separate ministry on AYUSH was formed, and it was again the very good turning point for the popularization of all these traditional medicine system. In 2018, general guidelines for the drug development of the Ayurvedic formulations established. This has given the wonderful guidance document to the various physicians, as well as to the manufacturing units and to the students of these AYUSH systems, that how they should be developed, evaluated, and should be practiced. In 2018, the AYUSH also introduced the guidelines for safety toxicity evaluation of Ayurvedic formulations, and in 2018, the central scheme of pharmacovigilance of Ayurveda, Siddha, Unani, and homeopathy drugs to facilitate the establishment of the three-tier network of National Pharmacovigilance Center, Intermediary Pharmacovigilance Center, and Peripheral Pharmacological Vigilance Center mentioned. Why this pharmacovigilance is also important from the point of view of traditional medicines, because the data of its uses, or data of its quality, safety, is transferred from one generation to another generation, and hence documentation, less documentations are available. So to about the drug interactions, drug food interactions, or adverse effects, side effects, data need to be generated to capture the international market, as well as to generate the evidences for the safety and efficacy of these traditional medicine systems. Now, these guidelines for the ASU drugs, the most important quality related guidelines are that is or documents that we can rely, that is a laboratory manual for the analysis of Ayurveda and Siddha formulations, which is generated by the Ayush Ministry. Then quality control manual for Ayurvedic, Siddha and Unani medicines, pharmacopoeial laboratory for Indian systems of medicines, then protocol for testing of the ASU medicines, then general guidelines for drug development of Ayurvedic formulations, and various Ayurvedic, Siddha, Unani pharmacopoeias are nowadays playing important role for the herbal industries as well as the traditional medicine practitioners, students, and various other hakims, vaidyas, or vaithyars that are called as the physicians of these systems. They are playing, these documents are playing the important role to maintain the quality, safety, and efficacy. As there is also need to have the certain guidelines or rules for generating the preclinical or clinical data, especially how to utilize the or use the animals, for which traditional medicines the animal studies are important, for which these are not important, so that are mentioned in the OECD guidelines. Then GCP guidelines, that is a good clinical practices guidelines for the AC medicines, and then general guidelines for the safety toxicity evaluation of the Ayurvedic formulations, which just previously mentioned. And as preclinical data guidelines are established or followed, then similarly the clinical practices guidelines need to be followed if the safety, efficacy data or evidences need to be established. So in this way, together since the 1940, Indian government as well as the all associated central laboratories and scientific research related institutes, together with the students or physicians, or with the this general traditional healers or traditional medicine practitioners, trying to develop the or update the guidelines so that quality and efficacious medicine should be get introduced into the market. Next, it is the CDSCO, that is the Central Drug Standard Control Organization, which is India's national regulatory body for cosmetics, pharmaceuticals, and medical devices. So, this particular organization, which is actually working on the various cosmetics or pharmaceuticals and medical devices, also playing a role in maintenance of the quality, safety, and efficacy of these traditional medicines drugs, because these drugs are also regulated through the Drugs and Cosmetics Act, and for that manufacturing, packaging, labeling, and the sale of the drugs is mentioned in the chapter 4A of this DNC Act, and various rules are mentioned for the manufacturing and regulations of license or conditions of license or approval of the testing laboratory, and regulations of the testing and quality control. For the good manufacturing practices, the Schedule T of the Drugs and Cosmetic Act is well known. Again, the advice to attain the uniformity in the administration of the Drugs and Cosmetic Act. So, various consultative committees like the uh, uh, DCC, means Drugs Consultative Committee. There are the Ayurveda, Siddha, and Unani Drugs Consultative Committee also there. So, it makes the easier communication between the manufacturers or retailers, wholesalers, to maintain the quality, to maintain the sale, to follow the practices which are expected, so that the consumers or patients should get the safe medicines. It also means Schedule T also contains the various regulations and requirements that are required to manufacture the Ayurvedic, Siddha, Unani products, that are the infrastructural requirements, manpower requirements, then various equipments requirements, area wise rules, everything is mentioned. The Schedule E1 of the drugs and cosmetic rules, that is maintenance of the records of raw material, guidelines of permitted excipients along with their standards, low to uh, there is the test for the heavy metals, and stipulation of the expiry date for the Ayurvedic medicines is mentioned, because most of the time there are the misconceptions that Ayurvedic medicines or Siddha, Unani, or homeopathy medicines are don't have the, or they don't have the any type of the expiry. So this particular schedule or DNC Act is giving the attention or attracting the attention of the consumers, patients, and manufacturers that suppose for the solid dosage forms like the Bhasma or Gutika, Vati, thus 3 year or 5 year or 10 year type of the expiry date or shelf life is mentioned. There is a list of the various dosage forms, and according to that shelf lives are given, and the this shelf lives indicates that the medicines or dosage forms should be utilized only in particular that durations. Then schedule M1 is there in the DNC Act, which is for the homeopathic preparations requirements of factory premises, plants, and equipments, that is specific for the homeopathy preparations. Then schedule H, that if the drug also comes under the purview of the Narcotic Drugs and Psychotropic Substance Act, because most of the herbal drugs are narcotic or addiction causing, like that of the opium, cannabis, or various other drugs like a cocaine means that are obtained from the coca. So these drugs should be considered under the purview of the narcotic drugs, and for that it is a schedule H. Schedule Y of the Drugs and Cosmetics Act is from the point of view of clinical studies, which is again the important, because to generate the evidences for the thousands of years old traditional knowledge medicines for the international market. Then along with this Drugs and Cosmetics Act, the Drugs and Magic Remedies Acts, which prevents from the advertisements related to the certain diseases, that suppose AIDS can be cured or diabetes can be cured. So these such a diseases cannot be cured, and if suppose such advertisements or claims are there, or such a magic type of the remedies are mentioned, then these acts start or it's applicable to such advertisements or such claims. Then Narcotic Drugs and Psychotropic Act, just we discussed that this act also plays the important role in the traditional medicines, because most of the herbal plant materials, if not used in a prescribed duration, in a prescribed dose, then it can cause the addiction and the psychotropic incidences. Next, we have to learn about the food safety and standards, and why we have to learn about the food in traditional medicinal and aromatic plants. Because previously it was just a food or just a pharmaceutical type of the categories in a market. But since 1985 or 82, there is a new segment which is risen, that is a nutraceutical, which is the combination of nutrition and pharmaceutical. So it is actually the food with the added benefits to means give the general health booster, or to prevent the diseases, or to cure the certain symptoms of the diseases. So from that point of view, learners must aware about this particular Food Safety and Standards Act. It was initially in 1990, it was a Prevention of Food Adulteration Act, and it was just focusing on the adulteration prevention. But in 2006 and 18, 2008, it was converted to the Food Safety and Standards Act, and the Food Safety and Standards Authority of India established. Further, in 2011 to 2015, there was the implementation of regulations, and mandatory FSSAI logo with license number on food labels was introduced. And in 2016, just means 8-9 years ago, the introduction of regulation of functional food and nutraceuticals introduced. These nutraceuticals can contain the health supplements, or food for special dietary use, food for special medical purpose, functional food, novel food, genetically modified food, food added with the prebiotics or probiotics, or the food containing the plant or botanical ingredients with the safe history of uses. And this act has mentioned the ingredient list, given the ingredient list, and according to the Schedule 4 and Schedule 6, the list of plants and botanical ingredients, and list of ingredients as a nutraceuticals which are considered as a nutraceutical is mentioned. So this particular list gives us the idea that there are many plants or derived extracts that can be marketed as a nutraceutical, that can be act as a food as well as the pharmaceutical therapeutic efficacy, and hence the learners must aware about this list if they are interested into the startup of nutraceuticals or further uh, further knowledge about the nutraceuticals for the lifelong learning, then they must go through this particular act in a detail. So here in this lecture 17, we have discussed about the AYUSH, CDSCO and FSSAI guidelines, which are showing us that how different products derived from the Indian traditional medicinal aromatic plants are in a market, and these products are having the different guidelines or different rules and regulations, and different type of the agencies, organizations are striving to maintain its quality, safety and efficacy. It can be the traditional medicines like or from the Ayush, it can be the modern medicines derived from the medicinal and aromatic plants, that are the herbal drugs or pure phytochemicals, and then further it can be the food material which is called as a, with additional benefits, which is called as a nutraceutical, which comes under the FSSAI guidelines. So hope you have learned about the different products and its guidelines for the Indian traditional medicine and aromatic plants and derived products. Thank you.